Hello and welcome. This video is for anyone who has experienced betrayal trauma and is feeling lost in the aftermath of it. If this is you, I'm very sorry that you are going through this. It is terrible and extremely disorienting and reality obliterating. So there's some things that I want to share with you that might help you during this time. I want to provide some information that can help you on your journey, help you feel not so alone and not so crazy, okay? And if you feel crazy right now, that's okay. That's normal, sadly. Okay, so which leads me to my first point. Betrayal trauma affects your brain. It tends to shut down one hemisphere or the other. There's a man named Dr. Doug Weiss who has done extensive research on this topic and has an entire platform and a website and a community for people who've experienced betrayal trauma. I recommend checking his stuff out. But one of the things that he talks about is that they do brain scans on people, and they found that half of the brain would be shut down, and so it's like your consciousness or all the electricity in your brain goes to one side or the other. This can leave you stuck in a fight response or a freeze response. Usually if it's a fight response, you're going to be like obsessively like obsessing about this relationship and trying to make it work, trying to go to couples therapy, trying to get counseling, even if your partner won't go, if this happened in a romantic relationship, which is what this video is focused on. Yeah, like if you are a loyal, loving person, you're going to try to save this relationship at all costs, right? And this can lead you to just like trying to figure out anything you can do to make it work out. And then on the other side, you can get stuck in freeze. I experienced both. I went into fight first, and then I totally froze up for years. Yeah, years. It takes a minute. Yeah, so your brain just doesn't function anymore. Like, what happens is that your entire reality at that point is completely wiped away. And I remember feeling like I had no idea what was real anymore. I don't know if I was real, like what in the world was real. Like it all just felt like a complete fracture, like a total like fractured hall of mirrors all around me, just broken glass everywhere. And I didn't know what to trust anymore. Because typically, you know, this is with a romantic partner or a spouse, especially if you've been together for a long time, you know, and this person's become your family, you naturally trust them more than anybody else in your sphere, in your life. So when there's betrayal by that person that you understand as someone who loves you more than anybody else loves you, it can be totally devastating. Because if someone that you loved more than anybody, or who loved you more than anybody, can do this to you, betray you, then what does that leave you with, right? Like, how can you trust anybody else that, you know, you're obviously not as close to? If this can happen to the person who you cherish the deepest, right? So that takes a huge toll, and it's no small thing. And so if you are feeling completely insane and at a loss and don't even know like which way is up, like who you are, your judge of character, like you're gonna have a big distrust of your judge of character, right? If you like invested so much time and energy and really believed in this person, and then this happens, it's going to be really hard to feel safe opening your heart to other people. That's going to take a while, and usually, I mean, for me, it took a lot of work on like looking at my own attachment stuff, looking at my own childhood wounding, doing EMDR and internal family systems therapies, so I could uncover the wounded parts of myself that actually missed the red flags, and that was attracted to a person who would, you know, do this kind of thing. And it was a few years until I finally became comfortable in myself, and I grew discernment, that, I was able to like start to open my heart again. And it took time. And I think that's wise. Like sometimes, when we end up in these experiences, we might have opened up a little bit too fast, or we're a little bit too trusting. This experience is going to cause you to go into a state of hypervigilance, which is where your brain is constantly going to be scanning for a threat. Like where you might have felt safe and at ease and like you had a good flow of life, now your brain is going to be working overtime, to look at like any discrepancy, or you're going to be going through backlogs of like, oh well, like, no, what did I not see? Or your brain's going to be like reliving a lot of your prior experiences to see where you should have seen signs that you overlooked, or behaviors that you made excuses for. And it's going to be a lot of information flooding through your mind and your system, and it's very overwhelming. Just do your best to be patient with yourself. Take, yeah, if I could say anything, just do your best to, soothe yourself. Get body work if you can. Acupuncture was really helpful for me, because things are out of whack. Acupuncture really helps, clear out your meridians and get your energy back in alignment, like your literal energy flow. That was crucial for me. But yeah, the hypervigilance aspect of this whole experience, can make you feel really tweaky, and it can bring on a lot of anxiety. And, of course, your heart rate's going to be going crazy. You're going to be more sensitive to things. You're going to be more irritable, definitely more moody. And all this is okay. It's very uncomfortable. Your friends aren't going to like it. You're not going to like it. But, definitely make sure to find comfort in the people in your life who you can really trust. Another thing that is going to affect this hypervigilance is that your future is destroyed, right? Especially if you're really deep in with somebody, are going to start a family, already have a family, if you have children, or, like have a house together. There's going to be so much coming up in your mind of like, well, how do I do this? Like, do I leave? Do I stay for the sake of myself, the kids? Like, what are the financial implications of this? How do I untangle myself? Like it's a huge logical load of things that are going to have to change, and that can be incredibly overwhelming to the brain and the nervous system, and it can make you freeze up. And so it's okay if that happens. Just try to take it one step at a time, and again, self-soothe as much as possible. Another thing that's important to understand that could happen is adrenal overload and fatigue can take place. So when I experienced this, I'm actually a really good sleeper, but when this happened, I started waking up feeling like I had jolts of adrenaline in my body, like literal panic attacks every morning. And this went on for months. I lost like 20 pounds, and eating was hard. I was very shaky. Like my body could not put on weight because I would just burn through it so fast. And I'd never experienced what an adrenal overload felt like before, but it was very intense. I just felt like I wanted to crawl out of my skin all the time. So that's something that's very normal if you're experiencing it. It's hell, and but it will get better at some point. Just make sure you care for yourself. Little tip, coffee doesn't help this part of the process. So if you're on the coffee, like try to like tone it down, go decaf, find something else that's more soothing for your nervous system, because when your adrenals are that like flooding your body, you don't want to put extra stress on them, because it's already enough. You've got enough on your plate. After the adrenal overload, adrenal fatigue is possible. And that's just where, like, once your system understands that this person's no longer a threat. For me, like, that person was out of my life. And it took a minute for my body to understand that that was not an imminent threat anymore. And so just my system completely crashed. I didn't have energy for much. I had a deep depression come on, and my body just felt like completely wiped out. I was exhausted all the time. There is a book that helped me a lot through this part of the process. It's called The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution by Aviva Romm. And she just spells out so many things. It's good to read anyway, especially if you're a woman. It shares a lot about our hormones and what happens in our endocrine system through certain stressors, especially like stress, which is you're dealing with a high amount of like adrenaline due to stress, but it also goes into other factors like diet and if you're exposing yourself to certain chemicals, other stressors and things in your life that she points out will have an effect on your endocrine system, and by kind of checking these other things off, you can ease up the load on your body, which will help you to get out of that imbalanced state a lot quicker. So highly recommend that. I will mention her book down in the description of this video. One thing that I was very surprised to experience as a result of betrayal trauma was it made it really hard to put my energy or dedicate myself or devote a lot of time into my own projects or into new endeavors, even career-wise, because you're like the animal body, the nervous system, once it learns that it can, devote all of this love and time and energy into a container, and then that can completely blow up in one's face in a very ugly and painful way. What that does is it sends a story, like a little signal to your system, which will make you more hesitant to do this in the future. And I was shocked that I mean, obviously that would translate to a new person or a new relationship, right? But I was really surprised to see how frozen I was even in my own career moves, right? Like it was just this story, this subconscious belief that got formed during that experience that, yeah, if I were to devote myself fully to anything, it would totally blow up in my face. And so anytime I would try to go do something or to build something bigger for myself, there was so much resistance there and fear. And I remember when I realized what was happening, it brought up a whole nother level of grief, right? This happens because you think about how animals live their day to day. They spend most of their time resting or conserving energy. Either that, they're either hunting, they're eating, they're fucking, or they're sleeping. And so our bodies want us to do whatever we can to conserve energy. So if we have these experiences where so much energy is wasted, and then like as a result of dedication and time and love or devotion, that it can create such a traumatic experience, which further depletes us. It's going to be very hard to give that kind of love and dedication to anything moving forward. So this is just something really good to be aware of. I think that if you can be aware of that this is a possibility and this might be happening, it can help you kind of track down those the places inside of yourself that feel this way or that might have certain beliefs around your love or your devotion. When you do want to love something and you feel that hold back, it's a good time to look inside and ask some questions to yourself, like, what is it that I'm really feeling? What is it that I think is going to happen? Do I think that this is going to have the same result as this betrayal experience that I had? It's just a good thing to be aware of, because that way you can untangle that quicker and then move forward with your life. Obviously, it's going to be harder to trust other people, especially if this is, your first big betrayal, and it gets harder if you've had more in life, as you know. Um, this, in one way, this is good. In another way, this is really tricky. Okay, so a lot of times when, like, people betray other people, and that means nothing about what you did, if you did or didn't do anything wrong. So a lot of times, we'll try to really try to figure out, like, oh, well, how could I have prevented this? Like, what did I not see? I'd never want this to happen again. And so, we can become, like I said, super hyper vigilant to make sure that we never have this kind of experience again, and become like so distrusting that we can end up isolating ourselves at the more harmful end of the spectrum. Even though a little bit of caving out and isolation after this kind of thing is really healthy and really good, like, you want to regulate your nervous system and come back into yourself. That's totally fine. Just don't get stuck there, okay? Um, but yeah, like, I used to be one of those people that was I just always wanted to trust people. I had this, it was honestly like a part of my inner child that hadn't grown up yet, where, I had those beliefs of, like, love always wins, and, you know, yeah, always like very optimistic, very positive thinking. Like I wanted to trust so much that, I did, even when it was not appropriate, even when, my intuition was telling me, like, something's not quite right about this. And then you probably relate to this. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I don't want to be a judgy bitch, about this person or this situation. So I'm going to override that and give it a shot anyway. Everybody deserves a chance. And no, honey, like, everybody does not deserve a chance, especially if you're like, mm. And if they do deserve a chance, then go very slow. So this is the gift of having your trust diminished and depleted, is that it kind of, you grew up a little bit, right? Which is kind of a bummer in some ways, but it's so helpful in other ways, because you're actually protecting your innocence on this side of it. Because when we go through something like this, it feels like such a loss of innocence, right? Like, our outlook on the world as being a benevolent and loving and safe place can get completely destroyed in an instant. And we don't know where we are anymore. And now it's like, oh, well, I have to, anybody, like even the people that I think really have my back can just turn around and do something that's terrible. Um, so it's devastating, especially to that innocent part, and we feel like our innocent inner child is dying. But what happens is that, because we're less trusting, we're more discerning. So that means earned trust is necessary. Okay, so instead of just blindly trusting people, um, people earn our trust, and that is so much more healthy and will lead you down a much better path in life. And any healthy person, like, any healthy partner or potential partner, is going to be totally okay to have to earn your trust. The people that you have to look out for, like the manipulators and the abusers, those are the ones that are going to want your blind trust, and they will get very upset with you if you don't give it to them. Okay, so that is a huge red flag. If you are like, yeah, I've got trust issues, I just want to take it really slow, get to know you. And honestly, they should be doing the same to you, right? Like, healthy people take a while to vet each other. And that's a good thing. Like, when people just blindly trust each other and it's just like, woo, yeah, it usually blows up in a bad way. And that quality, that open hearted, just totally trusting quality, is something that narcissistic people look for. Like, you're easy prey if you're like that. You just got your belly and your throat wide open and you're ready to go. And they're like, yeah, I'll totally clamp down on that. So that's a very hard lesson to learn. However, that's one of the gifts of the loss of trust in a betrayal trauma experience, is that it naturally cultivates this cynicism, and a healthy cynicism. Like, you want to have a healthy amount of it. You don't want to just believe and be open to everything that comes your way. And what happens then is that innocent child that you feel like you've lost, like, it's still there, but you're protecting that being. Like, you're protecting that part of yourself. And in this way, you're more identified with your inner parent. So it's a really beautiful thing. And when you're doing that, like when you're constantly, like you're wanting to protect your innocence, so you're vetting people more, you're going slower in relationships, you're letting people prove themselves over time, you're setting boundaries where people like you don't feel like they're healthy, you step back. And what that does over time is that it starts to build this beautiful trusting relationship between the parts of yourself. So that self-trust that was once completely destroyed, that's how it gets renewed, is by like setting better boundaries and being more discerning. And I know at first it feels so sad and like you've completely lost this beautiful, precious, perfect part of yourself. But that will come back. It will just look different. And it's an important part of the maturation process. This is especially true for people who have anxious attachment style. Oftentimes when we have that style of relating, we had a caregiver that was very inconsistent. And the way that we would normally cope with that would be to, like you don't want to believe that your parent or your caregiver is dangerous. Like that's something that's very hard for a child's mind to comprehend. Like it doesn't feel good, it's dangerous. So we will use cognitive dissonance and have ourselves believing that like, oh, well, they do actually love me. And so like you try to trust at all costs. You open yourself up more. Like you want to bond, like you want to have that bond with your caregiver at all costs, despite whatever betrayals or violations of boundaries or whatever's going on. So that's the early experience or circumstance that sets us up for this experience later in life. So that loss of trust is a very good thing. It allows us to mature and become more balanced and actually protect ourselves from harmful situations moving forward. And finally, one thing that's really important to know is that it takes a long time, and that's okay. Your friends and your family, anybody who has never gone through anything like this before, won't understand. They will probably wonder why you were still grieving, why you are still feeling challenged. There's many, 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 many layers to this. Like betrayal trauma is multi-dimensional. It affects your relationship with yourself, with the person that it happened with, obviously, with every other human being around you, with the world itself, and with whatever your concept of God is. It breaks your spirit. It can really break your spirit. And experiences like that, where they're so multi-layered, it takes a lot of time to rebuild yourself back and in a stronger way. And a lot of people just aren't going to get that unless they've gone through it. So if you are surrounded with people and you're feeling pressured or pushed to heal faster, if they're telling you you're too sensitive or what's wrong with you, give yourself some grace. Don't listen to them. It is good to do mindset work and start on meditation so you can start to rebuild yourself. But it can be a slow process. And something like things that are built very slow over time tend to be sustainable. Like if you just try to go into, complete everything's okay and forgiven and da-da-da, like that's not going to, first of all, you're invalidating yourself. And you need to be validated in that experience. And like anything that's built like that it's just going to wash away and you'll crash harder. So take your time, rebuild yourself slowly, take as long as it takes. And if anybody tells you that it's taking too long for you to heal, just, okay, thank you for your opinion, and just, put that in the waste bin and you do you, boo. Okay, I hope that's helpful to you. If anything stands out, if you've experienced any of these things, if this was helpful in any way, feel free to drop a comment and let me know, and I will see you in the next video.